Georgia versus Tennessee, California versus Arizona, Oklahoma versus Texas. No, we're not talking about great college football rivalries. We're talking battles of a different kind over water. Now, all over the country, as states' economies and populations continue to expand, conflicts have been escalating over vital and dwindling water supplies, reaching all the way to the Supreme Court this week in the case of Oklahoma and Texas's dispute over Red River resources, and causing Georgia to actually challenge its border with Tennessee, which dates back to 1818. Meanwhile, California and Arizona's dispute over water from the Colorado River has been heightened following a report from the D.C.-based organization American Rivers naming the Colorado River America's most endangered waterway. A scary notion not only for the 40 million people who rely upon it, but for all of us that consume the 15% of U.S. crops irrigated by the river as well. We're pleased now to be joined by Dr. Peter Gleick, president and co-founder of the Pacific Institute in Oakland, California, and the co-editor of A 21st Century U.S. Water Policy. Dr. Gleick, many thanks for your time this evening.
Happy to be here.
Well, thank you. So let me start off with the scary question. How major of a water crisis are we facing now in the United States?
I think we're facing an increasing water crisis. I think we're seeing competition for water resources in places we didn't used to see competition for water. I think we're seeing more and more contamination of our water resources. The reality is water in the United States is limited, and increasingly we're seeing conflict, we're seeing tension, we're seeing disputes over who gets it, who uses it, what they do with it. And I think we're in a situation where those conflicts are going to get worse, not better.
Well, where geographically in our country are the dwindling water supplies being felt most acutely right now?
Well, traditionally, we've had worries about water resources in the western United States. The western United States being much drier, much more arid than typically the eastern United States. So California, the Colorado River Basin, the Rocky Mountain area, the Great Plains, we've seen disputes over water there for quite some time. But increasingly, I think we're seeing disputes over water in places that we used to think of as water-rich. We're seeing disputes in Georgia, between Georgia and Tennessee, or Georgia, Alabama, and Florida. And I even think in places like the Great Lakes, which we think of as a region with enormous quantities of water.
Indeed.
We're going to see tensions over water levels, over water quality, over water use in the future as populations continue to grow and as demand continues to grow.
Well, then let me ask, besides battling over waterways, what are some other ways to guarantee that we might have the water resources to continue growing our country?
Well, part of the problem is there's simply not enough water in more and more of our river basins to do the things we want to do as inefficiently, as ineffectively as we are currently doing them. So that's part of the answer. Part of the answer is we have to learn to use the water that we already have far more effectively and far more efficiently than we're doing. We can satisfy our urban needs and our city needs. We can satisfy our agricultural needs with less water if we're more efficient. So part of the solution is don't look for more water. We've tapped out our water systems in many parts of the country, but let's figure out how to use it more effectively and more efficiently.
Indeed. Well, let me ask you then, how about the new report naming the Colorado River as the most endangered waterway in America? What does that mean exactly, and how big of a concern is this?
Well, unfortunately, we have problems with many different waterways in different ways, in terms of allocation, in terms of overuse, in terms of contamination and quality. The Colorado River is the biggest river in the southwestern United States. It's in some ways the only river for parts of the region, and it's long been over-allocated and overused. It's not a very big river by many standards, and we have given away more water in the Colorado than nature actually provides. And it goes to the cities, it goes to agriculture, it goes to produce power. And the competition over that limited resource has grown for decades, and now it's incredibly endangered. We use every ounce of the Colorado, shared among the 7 states in the United States and Mexico that have access to that river.
Well, many fear that water is going to be the next oil. How concerned are you about privatization of our water supplies in the future?
I do think one of the biggest challenges is managing the water. And do we manage it as a public resource? Do we manage it as a private good? There's a lot of contention over that. And in the United States, it's been a public good for a long time. We have excellent public agencies that manage our water resources, but we have to get better at managing it. And we have to realize that water is both a human right, but it's also an economic good. And we have to balance those challenges. The additional problem is that climate change is going to affect all of these issues. Climate change is going to affect how much water we get, where we get it, the severity of extreme events. It's going to put more pressure on proper management of this limited resource.
Well, you answered my next question, so let me just finish out with what impact do our domestic water disputes have on the rest of the world?
Well, in the United States, we're actually a little more fortunate in that when we have disputes over water, we take it to court, we negotiate, we have conversations, hopefully, about those disputes. But there's a long history of violent conflict over water internationally, going back 5,000 years. We fight over access to water. Water is a target during wars that start for other reasons. We use water as a weapon. One of the things that we do at the Pacific Institute is maintain a history of conflicts over water going back for millennia. And it looks like conflicts over water are growing as climate change affects water availability, as populations grow, as the demand for water grows. Water that crosses a border, a state border, an international border, we're beginning to see more and more violence, injuries, deaths, disputes over those shared water resources. And we're not good at managing water now, and if we don't get better, the risks of conflicts are going to grow, and the challenges associated with conflicts are going to grow.
I'd like to think my shorter shower will have a positive impact, and I hope it will. Dr. Peter Gleick is president and co-founder of the Pacific Institute in Oakland, California. Sir, I'm alternately terrified and inspired. Thank you so much for your time and expertise this evening.
Thank you.